guys, and welcome back to Let's Fly RC. Today we're going to do a build video on my new plane, the X-41. If you guys are looking forward to the free plans and build video for the Parallax, don't worry, they're on their way. I want you guys to have a good experience with the Parallax, so I wanted to get a couple people to test it out and give me their opinions on the flight characteristics and everything before I go ahead and release it to everybody. Once I get all that back, don't worry, I'll have the free plans and build video up for you guys. But for now, we're going to work on the X-41 because I've flown this plane and it's phenomenal. I mean, it flies straight as an arrow. The only thing you got to be careful with is you got to make sure that the wings are straight. If the wings are a little bit cockeyed or crooked, it flies a little different. It's definitely not as fast, but I've flown this with a fast motor and a regular slow fly motor as well. And I'll give you both of those links to all the electronics that I've used so far. I'm going to be testing it with a different prop. I've been told that it can handle even more speed, so hopefully I'll get it go even more fast than it was in my previous flight video. So if you guys do decide to get my speed build kit, you'll get 2 sheets of foam board, you'll get the control horns, the control rods, and the firewall. The triangle firewall is what I call it. It's one of the FliteTest designs. They were gracious enough to allow me to use some of their components to help you guys be able to build faster and better. We all want you to get into the hobby and help you as much as we possibly can. So thank the FliteTest guys for allowing us to continue to use their parts as well. So once you get all your pieces taken apart and set on the bench, then we'll get started. And as always, I'll give out the free plans on Facebook and on my website, letsflyrc.com. Okay, once you have all your pieces disassembled and laid out on the table, we can go ahead and start the process. Now on this particular plane, I provided 2 different sets of canards. I provided you with a set of canards that you can make movable or a set of canards that are stationary. And on the plans, there's going to be a square and a circle cutout to allow for both of those options. So for now, we're going to start with the wing, which is the biggest part of the build. For the canards that are movable, we'll have a separate build video for that. For this particular video, we're just going to make standard stationary canards. Okay, so on the wing, it's extremely important that it's very straight. So what we're going to do is we've actually got a section cut out right here that we're going to break open and put hot glue in, and that's going to be our hot glue spar. If you really want to have a strong wing, you can put a piece of flat carbon fiber right in this channel right here before you hot glue it down, and that'll add to the strength of the wing. But so far in all of my tests, I haven't used that. I've just used the standard hot glue spar, and it's held up great. Okay, so the first step is to take out all these sections. Let's just get all that stuff taken out of there, make it easier on ourselves later. Now in all these laser kits, it's always a good idea to go over some of these score cuts, which are red on the plans, by the way, with a razor blade. Don't go all the way down to the paper, but just give it a nice fresh cut. And you can use a ruler if you need to, but I don't ever need to. And just give it a little score cut there on all these score cuts. Just kind of go down right before you hit the paper. Try to get that foam nice and flat in that area so that when we crack it open, there won't be any additional excess foam in there. Once you've done that, we'll go ahead and start with the elevons. And we're going to use an elevon delta mix like on the FliteTest FT22. Take these elevons, bring them to the edge of the table, right to the edge, and then push down on them. It breaks them open. It kind of gives it that extra nice straight line to break it across. And once you have those, flip them over, and we're going to do a bevel cut, 45-degree bevel cut, just like FliteTest does in all their videos, on both elevons. And then we'll do the hot glue strengthening technique that they have as well. Set that aside on your table, and while that's drying, we'll start on the fuselage. I purposely didn't cut these lines all the way through so that when we go to fold it together, we have a little bit more strength. Again, like we did before, we're going to go ahead and run our razor blade down the score cuts just to make sure we have a nice smooth edge. And we'll leave our extra pieces in for now. Again, bring it to the edge of the table, crack it open, get those sections out of there that we don't need. Pull it all the way over 180 degrees and just pop that guy out of there. There we go. Alright, so guys, I didn't mark this on the plans, but this is going to be a B-fold, which is beside the centerpiece, okay, like in FliteTest. So we're going to put our glue towards the center section for extra strength. All right, and so we're going to put it up into the B fold here, and use our 90 degree tool or a piece of scrap foam from the corner of your scratch build kit, because that is 90 degrees as well. Just square it up, make sure it's nice and 90 degrees all the way down, and hold it there until it dries at 90 degrees. Repeat the process on the other side. Push down on it as you're doing this, and it keeps it nice and square. All three areas, front, middle, and back. And just make sure it stays 90 degrees as it's drying. Alright, so when you're done with that, let's put that aside for a moment and we'll come back to it in a little bit. We'll go back to the wing. When it's dry, make sure that it's free moving, so it's not going to stick on you. So now we're going to work on this spar section, and I'm just going to do a hot glue spar on this one. Like I said, if you really want to, you can put this carbon fiber piece right down inside that spar, and that will make the wing extremely strong. But I haven't needed that so far. So we'll go ahead and put it at the edge of the table like we were talking about before, crack it open, and we're just going to run a bead of hot glue right down this section there. Kind of skip over some of the holes here, at least the hole in the center. That way glue doesn't spray out everywhere. And we push this down. Make sure this stays nice and straight throughout this process, because this is going to determine how straight your wing is going to be. Take your scrap piece of foam and just run it down the top edge here, smearing that glue on there nicely. It's going to make a really strong wing. It's going to keep it nice and straight throughout the flight. Hold that until it's dry, till you can't feel any stickiness on the glue. Right now it's still sticky, so we're going to keep holding it until it's dry. It's very important that you hold this flat on a 100% flat surface, otherwise your wing's going to be crooked, and this plane does not fly well with crooked wings. Alright guys, this is my daughter Paige, and she's been dying to help me in one of these videos. She wants to be my little helper, so I'm going to let her help us throughout the rest of this video. So she's going to hold this over here for me while we move on to another section. And she's going to hold both sides so that it stays nice and flat for us. Alright, so these four pieces here are going to be the next pieces we're going to use in the fuselage. Take all the sections of these pieces out that we don't need, like usual, using your razor blade to channel down the score cuts and make sure they're nice and smooth and there's not going to be any leftover foam. Okay, so what I normally do on this final line here is I take the blunt end of the barbecue skewer and I just kind of push it down, and that'll help us when we go to bend it in. It won't fight us. When we go to bend it down like that, it'll be fine. So this is going to be this poster board, and this piece here we're going to do first so that we can line up the front and back sections of our fuselage. And these are also going to be B-folds. So what we're going to do is do the two sides first, like we've done on everything else, and then we'll bring up the back section. So let's start that. I'm just going to go ahead and do both sides at the same time and make sure they're square. Alright, so sometimes I crack open the center section, put a little glue in there as well for a little bit extra strength. It's not necessary though. Go up the sides here, a little bit in the middle, and press these sections down as well. And sometimes it's good to press against the table and make it nice and square. Alright, so once you have this piece ready, we're going to go ahead and put some poster board on it, and that's just going to give us the edge that we need to hold on to this section. So what we're going to do to get that started is take a small piece of tape and just line up the front edge and put the piece of tape on the front, wrap it around the back side, and that just kind of gives us something to start with. Once you've done that, we're going to just run glue all along this section, and we're going to press it down, keeping it straight as we run it backwards so that it's lined up properly. Alright, so let's press this down and line it up as we do it. Just press it up against the front, and as we're pushing down the edge, we will make this even in the center all the way back. Press down hard against the table and rock it up on the back section as well. And just kind of go back and forth between those two sections until it's dry. All right, now so we have a way to lift this up. We're going to take a piece of tape and fold it over about 1/2 of an inch, and we're going to wrap it around the bottom of this just like in the FT22 from FliteTest. If you haven't watched that video, go ahead and watch it because it's going to help you to build this plane. So once we have this piece ready to go, we'll test fit it in here, make sure it fits properly. And we're going to try to line up the top triangle. We're going to try to line up the top point here with this section, which is going to line up our barbecue skewer holes. So we'll go ahead and poke those through like we usually do with FliteTest, one side at a time. All right, so we're going to poke that through all the way, and we're going to leave it in there while we do the rest of this. We'll go ahead and cut it to the size about 1/2 centimeter out on both sides. And just keep it in there while we're doing this next part so that the canopy stays where it's supposed to be. All right, so let's do the front first. We'll go ahead and test fit this and see if it fits in here properly. And it fits nicely in there. So we'll go ahead and glue that guy in.
It's kind of running out.
All right, so we'll just slide that in there. And when you have it in there, let's go ahead and press it down on the table so that it locks in place. And if you want, you can take the razor blade and take off any excess that's in the front nose section so that it's a nice pointy front edge. Just 45-degree bevel like we do on everything else. If you built this glass table like I did, you can just take your razor blade and scrape off all that hot glue that you just put on the table. That's what makes this table so great. It's in one of my other videos if you haven't seen it yet on how to make a simple, awesome workbench. We'll just repeat the same process on the back of the plane. And with the rear, we're going to push it up as close as we can get it to the canopy area without gluing it to the canopy. We're going to leave a gap in the back here. That's where our triangle firewall is going to be. Now we have our fuselage almost complete. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and double check our canopy piece. We'll take it out with our piece of tape, and then we're going to take a popsicle stick and stick it on the bottom side here. Just glue that on there so that we'll have something to anchor it in the front. So we'll glue back about 1 inch down. We'll start about 1 inch down, go towards the back, just like on the FliteTest FT22, and stick it on there, leaving about 1 inch sticking out at the front. Just like that. And we'll set that aside and let it dry. All right, so we'll go back to our wing now. So we're going to flip it over so that the glue is facing down. And we're going to bring this piece in, and what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing as FliteTest does, where we take a couple tiny pieces of Scotch tape, put them on both ends so that it stays while we put our box tape or packaging tape across the top here. There we go. Now pull it tight as you put it down and make sure that it's centered, okay? Make sure the line goes down the middle of it. Okay? And then just push it down.
Like this?
Good job. That's right. And then start from the center out, and there we go. Press it down. We'll go ahead and open it up here, run a bead of hot glue down the middle, and then we'll press it down like we did on the other section. And then Paige is going to hold it straight for us again. Okay, while that's drying, we'll go ahead and test fit our canopy and make sure that this is dry first, and then test fit it. Okay, so we're going to take and we're going to finish cutting out all the relief cuts here. We're going to follow these lines all the way back, and you can use a ruler if you need to, and then we'll cut out these squares as well. On the plans, there's going to be marks here where you can cut out the square if you want to do the standard canards. And we're going to do that on this particular build. We'll cut out that square. There will be another build video describing how to use those movable canards in the future. Now you're probably wondering what this hole here is for. This hole is going to be where we're going to run our wires through. All right, now that our wing is dry and our fuselage is all cut out, we're going to go ahead and slide the wing in. Now I recommend pinching this area right here just to help it go slide through nice and smoothly, and just kind of flatten it a little bit. And we're going to put the tape upwards and slide it in. Just kind of slide it through the slot there, get the front pushed in as far forward as it'll go, and it'll stop eventually. And we got to make sure that we have our back end lined up with this square piece at the back. Make sure that it's nice and straight. And we're just going to glue it down. We're going to press and hold it right here. We're going to glue it down on one side at a time, and take a scrap piece of foam and press that down. We're going to use the standard canards on this one. Since we've already popped this out, we'll go ahead and put these guys on there. We're just going to pinch this a little bit so that it goes in easily. We'll test fit these canards to make sure that they're going to fit properly. And they fit wonderfully. And they should be pretty straight. But when you're putting them in, make sure you're eyeballing it like this to make sure that they stay straight while they're being glued. It'll probably fly just fine if they're crooked, but it won't look as good. So we'll go ahead and put some glue on these and get them started. And then we'll come back later and reinforce them. Make sure they're straight with your wing. Okay, once those are dry and you've made sure they stayed straight, we'll go ahead and just reinforce them on the top and bottom. And double check to make sure they're straight, because when you put that hot glue on there to reinforce them, it can sometimes weaken the other hot glue. Okay, so now we're going to work on the stabilizers. Since they're going to sit at an angle, we're going to go ahead and figure out where the angle needs to be, and we're going to cut a little bit of a 45-degree bevel on this, the front, middle, and back sections so that it can sit at an angle with no problem. And then we're going to use this angle gauge here to line it up while it's drying. So once you have those bevels cut, it's always a good idea to squeeze these pieces here so they go in nice and smooth. And go ahead and test fit them in these channels. Make sure they fit right, just straight up and down. And then once you get them in there, you can give it a little tweak to the right and go a little bit over what this angle is going to be, because it'll make it easier for us to, once we glue it, push it back to the right angle. So once you've test fit that, we'll go ahead and put some glue on that piece and stick it down. We'll put the glue in the front, middle, and back, just the same pieces that we were beveling. And we'll slide it in there, and then again we'll come back and reinforce it like before with the canards. And line up the angle, and just let it sit there till it's dry. Alright, we're going to reinforce this, and then we're going to repeat the process on the other side. With these pieces, what we're going to do is we're going to just go down. These are etched all the way to the paper, but just so they go all the way to the paper, we're going to use our razor blade and just go over them again. And then use something to dig it out with to get all the foam. This is sort of like the FliteTest Vigan on some of their parts. And just make sure you can sometimes use this to use your barbecue skewer to get the rest of it out of there if you need to. Just make sure all that the foam's out of there, because what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put it into that notch right there, and it'll give us a nice flat clean edge on the outside there. Okay, so once you've got that, you can pinch the edges here and test fit it. And we're also going to put these at an angle as well, but you can usually just kind of bend these to the angle they need without having to cut anything away, and it keeps it looking nice. We're going to use the same gauge on these as well. So we'll go ahead and put some glue along here and a little bit inside this channel, not a lot, but just a little bit inside here, and we'll go ahead and glue them on. Now for this one, you might want to hold it up off the table as it's drying. Alright guys, the build of our airframe is now complete. All that's left to do at this point is to install the electronics and check your balance. So the balance point is actually noted by 2 lines in the plans and marked on the bottom of the speed build kit right here. It balances out perfectly with a 2200 battery about an inch forward from the line right here. That's where I typically put my 2200. I had to extend the power wire of the motor to get up to this section, and I had to put extensions on the servos as well. Now, your firewall, you're going to put a whole bunch of glue on the bottom of it and a little bit on the sidewalls of this section here, and slide your firewall up into this section here. Now I pushed it up until it hits, but you can kind of base this off of the motor and power setup that you decide to use. You want to make sure the propeller does not hit these fins. You want to try to keep it at least a ½ inch away from those fins, so if you need to move it forward or backwards depending on your power setup, you can do that and it'll be nice and locked in strong. But I usually push mine all the way forward. I'll have a link to all the different motors and propellers that I've tested so far in the description. Also included in your kit are the control horns and control rod. And this is a standard typical FliteTest design where you can pop these in, line them up, and they usually come out perfectly lined up just by sticking them in the notches here. So you'll stick them in the notches, hot glue them in, and mount your servos in these holes just like you normally would with FliteTest. Your wires will be going back and down, and then you can run your wires through these holes up to the front. I hope you guys enjoyed this build video. I hope it was helpful and educational for you. If you have any questions or tips, please ask me on Facebook or check us out at letsflyrc.com.
Thanks for watching Let's Fly RC. We'll see you next time.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed building the new Let's Fly X-41. And I really want to thank Tech Dad for the original design, because this plane is a ton of fun. We're going to try a new prop on it this time. I've been using a 5.5 prop. I'm going to try a 6.4, and hopefully this thing will get even faster than it was before. Needs a little bit of trimming here. Whoops. Well, there you have it, guys. The LF X-41. Those trees just jump right out at me all the time. You gotta love it. Well, guys, I got the X-41 out of the tree. Looks like it's gonna need a little bit of repairs. Sometimes it goes that way, but no big deal. They're easy to build. We'll go ahead and rebuild this one and get it back up in the air. Thanks for watching Let's Fly RC. We'll see you next time.